I'm going to culinary school in about a week, but I wanted to get some Final Signalis themed videos out before I forget the hyperfixation for a while. So I'm back here in the basement, in the recording setup, and today I'm starting a new little mini-series for the channel called Replika Review. Because I don't think I actually talked about the replicas of Signalis very much, or did them justice. I mean, 2 of the 3 questions I posed about the Colibris were a joke. Is she bioresonant because she's short? I don't know which bottle I was on when I wrote that. So it was definitely the Jack Daniels speaking. Final point. Is she stupid? Was she short because she's bioresonant? Was she stupid? It's just... that's stupid. I could do better. So that's why I'm here today, to start this new mini-series. However, this is the first episode, and I have a list of things here to talk about. Before we even get into these fuckers, I need to explain what these fuckers are. So that's what today is, episode 1 of Replika Review. What is a replica? A replica is the term for the androids made by Aeon to serve the Yusan nation. This serving can mean anything between educating the Gestalts, people, of the nation, to serving in the workforce. It's as simple as that. Replicas are androids. Robots. They're divided into groups based on their chassis. I say that because this unit and the unit underneath it are not the same, but they're both replicas. They're divided by their chassis, which also divides them into their purpose, and role they fill in the nation. And that's important. Each designation is a type of bird. It's just in German. You're gonna have to use Google Translate, or if you speak German, you know, probably. But yeah, so each replica chassis is named after a different bird. I think maybe some of them are named after a bird based on their personalities. It's up in the air. All replica units of a specific chassis share the same frame and are only identified by their model number or nickname they give to each other. That point will come up later. All replicas are the same, build-wise, besides their outer shell, which means their internal organs, their bone structure, all the same. It's just what is represented on the outside that's different. So, this bitch on the inside looks the same as this bitch. And that bitch on the inside looks the same as this bitch. That's all that it means. And so now we're going to get into the anatomy of a replica. Starting with the outer shell of a unit, the outer layer is the defining physical property. The shell identifies what unit they are and what their role is in the nation's workforce. Like I said, the easy way to identify what replica is to look at the chassis model. For instance, this is an Elster. She's got an orange chest piece. I say orange, but every time I look at it in game, I swear it's fucking red. I might be going cuckoo. She also has a blue and white heavy combat configuration, which is important. This is Colibris. I'll run into all those later, but it essentially, the outer shell is their defining characteristics. You can look at them and say, this is who they are. This is this one, this is that one. Right? So, what does it actually consist of? What's inside such a thing? What is a replica made out of? How do they work? Today on How It's Made, I, John, am going to talk about lesbian robots for presumably 30 to 20 minutes. The head and hands are made of synthetic flesh that functions nearly identical to that of Gestalt flesh. So essentially, the hands of me, the head of me, the same as these creatures, these critters. I will have some questions about that in a bit, but we'll get to asking questions at the end of this. The torso, arms, and legs are made of a polyethylene shell. That's basically just all polyethylene, or depending on the unit, it might be reinforced with carbon fiber or titanium. It's important because that usually means they are either working in hazardous environments or they are part of the Protector Security Force. Note all unit bodies are modular and damaged sections can be detached and replaced with new repaired bits. The best example of this would be Elster after the fake out ending, where she replaces her missing arm and broken chest with that of a white and blue heavy combat configuration unit and goes on with her day. She just kind of pops the broke chest plate off and puts the new one on and just slips her arm back on. Weird how that works, but it does. The next layer is a metallic endoskeleton that protects an inner layer of flesh and the organs. So, the best... I don't have a picture. Oh, I should have printed that out. The best way to represent this metal endoskeleton would be when Elster is critically injured after the fake-out ending. You can see her chest is there's just this blue, like, skeleton inside of it. That is the metallic endoskeleton. And you can see underneath this metallic endoskeleton that there is a bunch of organs, which is weird for a robot, an android, right? Like, why would you give an android organs? But that's the thing. Replicas are almost identical to Gestalts in every way, except the fact that they're manufactured in a factory. And they're treated as such. They're treated as objects, not people. But that's something we'll get to in a bit. So underneath this layer of flesh, underneath the skeleton, underneath the skin, is organs. Specifically, the couple important ones. Heart and lungs, and all of the organs that make up the digestive system. Question mark on that one, actually, because it looks like it's a digestive system, or it looks like at least they have intestines. The model for a corrupted Yule unit, some of them have like a weird, like, it looks like an intestine hanging out from their stomach, which makes me believe that they do actually have a digestive system. We're going to ask some questions about that later. They also have veins that carry oxidant blood throughout their body. They have oxidant liquid in them instead of blood. It just so happens to be the same color as blood, actually. Funny how that works. They also have a whole nervous system, allowing them to feel pain. Like I said, these things are basically human. They're just treated like fucking Roombas. I cannot stress this next part enough. I wrote this in all caps, and that's the only time I actually capitalized any letters in any of these papers. Replicas lack reproductive organs. No dick, no balls, no coocher tits. How do NSFW artists manage to still make porn? What the fuck? I know Rule 34 states that if it exists, there's porn of it. I'm just extremely disappointed in y'all. Moving on. Let's talk about the brains of a replica. All replica units of a certain chassis are running the same brain, known as a neural pattern. These neural patterns are taken from a Gestalt who was found compatible with this process. Usually one that is a bioresonant, or someone they just wanted to make disappear. Because the second they are chosen to become a neural pattern for a replica chassis, they instantly disappear from all records. They are then cryogenically frozen, and their brain is copied into a neural pattern, which is then plugged into a replica frame, which gives them a persona, gives them a brain, essentially. The same way we work, they work through us. If I took my brain, copied it into like a fucking computer chip or something, and plugged it into a robot and gave it my consciousness, there would now be a replica of me that just talks about dead space and wants nothing more than to cook in a kitchen. That would be it. That would be the only thing that replica does. So basically, you'd have an autistic replica. And along with the personality and behaviors of the gestalt they're based off of, the neural pattern also gives a replica the skills and interests of the gestalt they took the pattern from. The process, however, is not perfect, and all replica units running a neural pattern have some odd, behavioral issues or quirk to them called persona destabilization or degradation. This occurs when a replica either does not have enough stimuli to keep them calmed and set on their path. A neural pattern can only go so far before a replica starts to veer off course and start doing its own thing, which is what persona degradation or destabilization is. They stop following their set pattern and start becoming their own individual. The nation, however, does not like this and will do anything they can to keep them working. So they use it's called fetish objects. This is really just a term for new stimuli to keep their brains entertained. Usually this stimuli occurs in the form of something the gestalt enjoyed. For instance, auras tend to like to work with plants as stabilization objects, and so it's usually common to let them take care of plants. Colibris, in order to keep themselves entertained, are to be given a full stacked and stocked library, so they're book nerds. But that's a fetish object. Alternatively, to prevent them from destabilizing, you should withhold information or knowledge from them. For instance, let's go to Elster real fast. Elster, it is said not to, because they're stoic and reserved and based off of a combat veteran who probably worked in smaller groups than a standard military outfit, was more likely a lone wolf compared to the rest of the combat veterans of Veneta, therefore meaning her replica unit does not really care for friends, and it is stated that you should not try to make friends with an Elster, otherwise it will cause destabilization and Elster will start to become her own person. If only some white-haired girl listened to that, maybe we wouldn't have Signalis. Actually, I'm glad Ariane didn't listen. I like Signalis. Anyways. That is basically that is a really half-decent summary of how replica brains work. It's believed that the gestalt a neural pattern is made from shares the likeness of the replica they are the brains of. I personally believe this because Elster is based off of a Venetic combat veteran, which is believed to be the woman in the picture next to Alina Sio. So if we're going by that logic, I'd say they're pretty fucking identical. I might just be stupid. Okay, next page. We're almost done, I swear. Alright, we are starting with the questions segment. Some of these are going to be a little silly. Other of these are going to pose actual questions I have and curiosities. I'm going to try and come up with an answer for each, however. Replica units like stars form hierarchies and bond with each other. All replicas besides Elsters are social by design. But what is the extent of these bonds? Was Elster 512 falling in love a first for replicas? Or are units allowed to have bonds past surface level friendships? This last part of the question, I'll actually answer first. Elster falling in love with a human, that might be a first. I'm not sure how replica and Gestalt relationships actually work. I'm not sure if that's a thing that's happened before. I'm sure if it has happened, the nation has probably killed both involved. That's just how it works, probably. They don't like lesbians, apparently. However, most replica units are allowed to have deeper levels, like deeper meaningful connections with each other. At least they do. I don't know if they're allowed to or if it's something prohibited by the nation, but they do it anyways. The best evidence I can think of is in the Sierpinski mines. There is a room in the debug menu known as the Star Room. It holds a dying star unit and a Yule crying over her dying friend, presumably lover. The two, if not lovers, clearly have a very deep bond. They care about each other a lot, and in the star's dying moments, attempts to comfort her friend and tell her that it's gonna be okay, and tries to cheer her up by sharing one last secret, and that is that she remembers her Gestalt name. So, I think that's pretty clear evidence that most replicas are allowed to connect and form very deep, meaningful bonds with each other. I do not think there is a problem with that in the nation, as long as it does not cause destabilization or degradation or impact the work efficiency. And we'll dive into the hierarchies bit when we get to star units, because that's the ones that really focus on that. Is there synthetic skin under the chest and limbs of a unit, or is that where the innards start? That's a question I've been posing. So all replicas have skin on the outside on their hands and arms, or on their hands and head. But what I'm curious about is the like chest, arms, and legs like clothing with a set of skin underneath it, or is the polyethylene like design of the body just that's its torso? And if that is technically just its body, completely just that's it, open, I pose the question, have they ever considered wearing clothes just like for funsies? Because Elster at the beginning of the game wears an AVA suit, implying, first of all, A, their lungs do work and they need oxygen to live, but secondly, that they do in fact have things they would cover themselves up with, which makes me wonder, do they ever think about just wearing casual clothes? Like, do they ever think like, I should put on a hoodie and sweatpants? I don't know. Genuine question. It's not a really serious one, but it's one that I thought of while I was at work the other day and decided to write down when I got home. Are there more unit types besides those mentioned in game? And how many of which are female? Because if we're going off of what is seen in Signalis, we have seen 9 replica models, but have heard of 11. There were 2 mentioned, but not shown in game. One of those being a heavy combat variation of the mining units. Instead of being meant for hazardous work environments, this other unit would be meant for combat. And it was known as the flycatcher, or the schnapper, whatever. Essentially, that's what we know about that one. The next one is, we know nothing about what it is, what its purpose serves. We only know its abbreviated designation as, I believe it's CRN something. Presumably, that unit model would be known as Crane, because that seems like it spells crane. All we know about that one is that it potentially is like the top dog overseer of Rotfront's Blockwarts and delivers messages and important briefings to the Calibri Blockwart or the Calibri Blockwart's C unit. That's all we know about the Crane. Do units need to worry about hygiene? And then in parentheses next to this for some explanation of this question. I'm assuming they don't sweat and that synthetic flesh doesn't need maintenance like ours does. I pose this question because if we're only going off the fact that they have internal organs designed just to keep them alive and cycle waste, that's a question coming up, they don't really have a need to sweat. I'm assuming they don't sweat, and if they did, it would only result in them having clammy hands and sometimes have an outburst of acne. But I'm doubting they sweat, which means any need for hygiene care is likely only strictly for stabilization, and that's it. The most I can think of for hygiene care mentioned for replicas is Yules liking to tend to their appearance. They care very much about their appearance and have to be stocked with a mirror to check themselves out daily. And Storches, for stabilization, like to bathe. That's it. That's the only mention I can think of hygiene care in replicas. Final question. How in the fuck do they dispose of waste? They don't have the same anatomy as gestalts, so where does the digestive tract fucking end at? You can tell I was getting a little upset about this. Not even upset, just very bewildered. Because genuinely, how does it work? They have to eat food even if it is just to refuel themselves. They require less food than gestalts, but they still require food. I'm actually... I'm getting upset by it. There's clearly bathrooms around the Sierpinski facility. At first, before I thought this deep about it, I thought, oh, those were just for the gestalts, right? Those were just for the people that actually require pissing and shitting to dispose of waste. But then I realized, wait a goddamn minute, these things need food too. They eat food. How does it work? How? Where does it... Okay. That is the concluding question for I have for Replika Review Episode 1. Come back next time where we will be talking about the Yules, the basic chassis of the nation, designed primarily for basic tasks. We will be talking about these goobers in length next time on Replika Review.